The Travel Transformation Podcast is proud to be partnered with Give the Goodness Global, an amazing global outreach project helping families in need all over Southeast Asia and beyond. Please check them out at Instagram.com/Give the Goodness Global today. And now on to the podcast episode.
Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, the podcast that explores the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply want to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, travel transformation coach, founder of the Travel Transformation Company, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation. My name is Jessica Grace Coleman and I'm your host, and today I'm talking to Patti Shales Lefkos. After a successful career in education in Toronto and Vancouver, Patti celebrated her first year of retirement by attending journalism school in Vancouver at the age of 60. When the course was completed in April 2007, she and her husband Barry moved to their home at SilverStar Mountain Resort in British Columbia's Okanagan Valley, at which point she started her career as an adventure travel writer. Since 2007, she has published more than 200 articles in magazines and newspapers, most notably Macleans, The Globe and Mail, and the award-winning San Francisco Chronicle travel section. Her inspirational first book, a Himalayan adventure travel memoir with a humanitarian twist, was published in 2020. Nepal, One Day at a Time is her story of 3 months of volunteering in a tiny Himalayan village school and then trekking solo in remote Upper Mustang for the first time at the age of 67. Nepal, One Day at a Time is a great book for travellers, trekkers, armchair travellers, teachers, and those wishing to volunteer in developing countries. This book also inspired her non-profit of the same name that raised funds to build a school in Nepal after the 2015 earthquake. To date, it has sold more than 1,500 copies. In this interview, we talk about all kinds of things from her travels and treks, how to solo travel when you are over the age of 50 and a woman, and how you can help donate to her next fundraiser when she goes back to Nepal this autumn to finish hiking the rest of the Great Himalayan Trail. This was a really great interview, so let's get straight to it. Hi, Patti. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you, Jess?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. It's actually been a really nice sunny spring day today for a change, so it's made a difference. Yeah.
Where I am at SilverStar Mountain Ski Resort and Bike Resort in Canada, in British Columbia, it's snowing heavily this morning, even though the mountain closed for the season yesterday. And now we're getting fabulous new snow. Everyone down in the valley is golfing, so they generally close this time of year.
All right. So do you live in the ski resort?
Yes, home development. We have a home above the village, and the skiway goes right behind our house.
Wow.
So we can go out in the morning and ski right from the house and ski back. So
that's amazing. You've never, ever been skiing in my life. And I don't know how I've got to my age without doing it yet.
No. And lots of people actually come to SilverStar from England, from the UK. From piles of them come from Australia. It's becoming a real international resort, but it's retained its small kind of family community feel.
Oh.
It's a really nice community. There's maybe 250, 300 people who live here full time.
Wow, that sounds really cool. I'm going to have to look this up, and then maybe one day I will actually try skiing. I think I'm just scared of skiing into a tree or something, but it's fine.
Well, I'm still scared of that too.
Okay, so, we know where you are right now, but can you tell me who you are and where you're from and what you do currently?
Well, I grew up in a suburb of Toronto, Ontario, in central Canada. And I stayed there until the end of grade 12. At that time, they had a grade 13 in Ontario, and I was lucky enough to go to Switzerland for grade 13 and live in Neuchâtel. And I took all the same courses, but I got to live in Neuchâtel, looked out over Lake Neuchâtel to the Alps, and kind of fell in love with the mountains. So when I came back to Toronto, I went to university and became a teacher for 6 years, but the mountains were kind of always calling. And so I ended up moving west and ended up in Vancouver, where I actually was a teacher and a principal for the next 30 years. I always wanted to be a writer. I declared when I was 10 that I would be I bought a typewriter with a small inheritance from my grandfather. But it took me that long to get back to it. So when I was 60, I went to journalism school for a year in Vancouver. And then we moved up to this house, to our ski place. We had planned it as a retirement place. And I began writing adventure travel things, and we began doing some international travel.
Wow. I mean, that's so amazing. What was it like going back to like school 60? What was it?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. Well, it was funny. Like, you had to apply to get into it. You had to put a portfolio of writing together. And of course, I was never terribly confident with my writing, but I got in, and there were only 23 people in the class. And there was one fellow about 50, maybe. I was 60, and all the rest of the kids were 25. But they helped me with all the technology stuff, because when I was a principal, I had a secretary. I didn't have to know how to do everything. So they helped me with the technology, and then I helped them with contacts for interviews at the school district, in the police, in the social housing. I knew all these people. So it was they helped me a lot, the kids. But still, it was terrifying.
Yeah, wow, that's so amazing that you did that. I think a lot of people would love to not necessarily start over, but maybe get new skills when they're older, but they're too scared to do it. So that's amazing. You mentioned going to Switzerland. What was that like? I'm going to Switzerland for a month this summer, so I'm really excited because I'm also a mountain person, despite having never gone skiing. So what was it like when you landed in Switzerland? Was that the first time you'd been to Europe, or how was that?
Absolutely, yes. We actually, in those days, you went by ship on the Cunard line. So it took 5 days to get to Liverpool. We toured Oxford, then went across the Channel and took a bus. There were 105 in my year, and took a bus to where we had our pensions, and we lived in, each of us was assigned a pension. So my roommate and I lived with a Calvinist minister and his wife. And it was fantastic because we had family dinners and you had to speak French. They didn't speak much English. So I really learned my French being there. That was definitely my first time away from home. Yeah.
Were you scared or anxious, or were you just super excited to go?
All of the above. Excited, scared, anxious. I made a good friend on the ship and we became roommates, and I didn't know anybody at all. But yeah, it was, the interesting thing is we were all away from home for a whole year for practically the first time. And there was no FaceTime and Zoom to call your parents and stuff. So I wrote a letter once a week, and as did my parents. They were fantastic. But, we all became a real family. In March every year still, about 15 of them come here to ski.
Oh, that's so great. That's amazing.
And we're the graduating class of 1965.
Wow.
A bunch of us are still skiing and snowshoeing, and it's fun.
I love that so much. I've met some great people traveling, and I hope that in several years' time we'll still be meeting up. So that's so cool.
Are you planning to do some hiking, like the Tour de Mont Blanc, or?
Not any super hiking like that, but I really want to explore the area. I'll be in a little village about half an hour from Zurich on the train.
Lovely.
I'm going to cat sit, so I can't do any massive trips away because I'll be looking after the cat. But yeah, definitely some day trips and things like that, I think.
Nice.
Would be great. How was the crossing? You mentioned you had to do it by boat. How was the crossing?
Totally fine. There were a couple of days some of us felt a bit seasick, but the cabin steward gave us soda crackers, and that apparently helps. I don't know that anybody was really sick. It's a huge ship. The Cunard liner was, and they had theater and huge dining rooms and everything. It was quite lovely.
Nice, like a cruise on your way to your you're abroad.
Well, no, not quite that posh. Actually, we were 4 girls in a cabin.
Oh, yes,
but it was really fun.
Nice. So you're all about getting outside your comfort zone and reaping the rewards, which I like talking about and doing too. And you talk about it in terms of women who want to solo travel over 50. So can you talk a little bit about this, why you think it's so important, and how women can start doing this if they want to, but they've never tried?
For me, it was fairly easy, particularly going to Nepal, where I did my solo trip, because we'd been there before, my husband and I, for 3 months. And we were to go back and volunteer in the village of our porter and guide, because we got to know them very well, being with them for 3 months. We were about to go back, and then my husband ruptured his Achilles tendon.
Ooh.
So he couldn't go. And I thought, and here's the comfort zone thing, I was really nervous going on my own. And I had all kinds of fears. So I made a list, and I think this works for some people. I made a list of all of horrible things that might happen and what I would do if they did. And they were all fixable. Okay, I'm not stepping out of the airport because it's a crazy airport when you arrive at night in Kathmandu. It used to be. I think it's better now. But I was afraid to walk out of the airport, and I didn't have a cell phone. So I thought, okay, what can I do? Well, I can ask somebody to phone the trekking agency. The guide that we'd had before, I will come on my own if you give me that same guide, because I trust him. So it worked out. I mean, he was right there, but I could have asked somebody to phone. There's all kinds of things you can do. And I kind of tried to work through each of my fears like that. Getting lost in the Hong Kong airport, Jeff, go on a train for your baggage and all that.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never done that on my own. So
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, because with anything, it's your own objections that stop you from doing it and the things you think could go wrong. But as soon as you, like you say, sit down, write them all out and figure out how you'd actually deal with them and realize that, oh, I can easily do that, then not all the fear, but, a lot of it goes away. So,
and just realizing you can always ask for help.
yeah,
People want
exactly.
to help people. And to do it in small bits, like don't suddenly go on a long, big trip where you've never been, but if you're afraid to go by yourself, do a weekend trip on your own. That includes a flight maybe, and booking your own hotel, or going on a hike by yourself for a day or an overnight. Well, you just build up, I think, and I have done that past as well.
Yeah, it's definitely so powerful to do, like you say, a weekend away or even a day away and realize that you are capable of doing so much more than you know. And then, yeah, you can take that confidence into the next trip, definitely. So you mentioned there your solo trip to Nepal. Can you tell us more about this? Because I know you've obviously written about it a lot.
Well, I decided to go solo because even though my husband couldn't go, my sister was 4 years older at the time, and she was diagnosed with early onset dementia. And she'd been a teacher and a very vibrant yoga instructor and everything. I thought, that could happen to me. And I was 67, almost 68 when I went. And my mom had Parkinson's at 76, so I didn't know what might happen to me. And my best friend had cancer. She beat it, and that was fine, but I thought I could be next. So I headed out, and I wanted to volunteer. So I volunteered in the village of the guide for several weeks. And then we went on a month-long trek because I really wanted to find out if I could be a good travel writer. I wanted to have those adventures, and my guide, Raj, who's a good friend now, his English is quite good, so he could help me interview people. And so I did that for a month. But then several things happened that really made a difference in that trip, I guess. The first one was that I went to a village called Aprik. At the end of my volunteering stint, I was volunteering in a school that had help from the Australian Rotary. For there, it was a fairly well-equipped school. So at the end of this, they took me to another village, and this village asked for my help. Could I help them build a school? And I thought, they must think all Westerners are rich or something. And I felt really badly leaving there. I had a real imposter syndrome about it. But then after the trek and Upper Mustang and stuff, I was in it's the capital city of this area called Upper Mustang, up near the Tibetan border. And I met a monk up there who was the head of a large monastery school. And he would go to Singapore every year for 5 months and do Buddhist teachings and make money to bring back to create this school for so many kids who didn't have a school. It was very interesting. It was like talking to a colleague principal in Canada. And we just talked about ideas about what you can do for fundraising and supporting the community. And that kind of gave me a bit of confidence that I could make a difference. And then near the end of coming out of Upper Mustang, I took a fall in a cave monastery, my hip, and I'd had a bad hip injury a few times before. So I was kind of scared and worried about that, but I made it out. We still had 4 or 5 days to walk all day to get to the airport. So I made it out. So that kind of gave more confidence too. And then when I came home, I realized, well, maybe I could do something for this village. So I started a nonprofit called Nepal One Day at a Time. And I joined my local Rotary Club. and they partnered with me. And then the trekking company that I trek with, called ACE, the Himalaya, has an NGO that supports their area in Gorkha, Nepal, and it's called Sambab, Nepal. We all work together, the three groups, and now we have built a school, kindergarten to grade 10, 350 kids. And so I wrote a book about it, and I had planned to do travel articles, but I kind of did a bunch, and then it all started to come together. So I put it together in this book, Nepal One Day at a Time. And then people would ask me, so how'd you get to be this woman who would go off solo? That's a lot to do, especially at your advanced age at that time. So I wrote another book called Grounded by Granite, which is about growing up on an island in the summers in Canada, in quite a remote island with no electricity or anything, and how was roughing it. A very clean lake. We drank the water at the time. We don't now, but that gave me a lot of resilience it built in. And I'm lucky to come from a very happy family. So it kind of all worked together to have it happen.
Wow, that's amazing. The fact that you did that school, I mean, have you gone back to see the school, or is that a plan that you have?
In 2017, we did some trekking and the first floor was done. So I went back by myself the next year just for 3 weeks to see the school finished. Since then, a Japanese group has built another wing. And so that's why we could expand from grade 8 to 10, which is really great. And then my Rotary Club 2 years ago gave a grant enough to put in 17 computers. The village just got electricity in 2018. And the classrooms would be very cold because they had shutters. And if you open the shutters to get light in, it's very cold because there's no glass in the windows. Okay, they need electricity, they need lighting, and then they asked for computers. And so that's what we've done. And also the kindergarten, when I was there in 2018, comprised of a plywood platforms, short 3 inches off the cement floor. And that was at the side of the grade 1 classroom. Because the Japanese consortium built another wing, they have their own room, and my Rotary Club furnished it with Montessori play equipment and slides and chairs and, all the stuff that you need for a good kindergarten that we take for granted, and certainly in Canada, and I'm sure you guys as well.
Yeah, wow. So what was it like when you went there and you saw the classrooms and you saw the building, knowing like what a big hand you had in it? Like what was running through your mind when you saw it?
In 2018, when I went and it was finished, yeah, it was great. It was really good to see the kids in there. But I knew there was still so much to do. As a classroom collection, not just from the school library, I would have 200 books in my classroom. They had none until we took books. One of our high school Rotary groups gave me $1,500 when I went in 2017, and I spent 2 days buying library books and stuff in Kathmandu, and then we took them all out. And we'll do that again. We're going this fall. All told, we've trekked about 700K in Nepal. And there is a big hike called the Great Himalayan Trail. So we have about 800K left to complete it. So we're going in September or August for 4 months to complete as much of that remaining part as we can. And it's going to be a fundraiser for school as well. So we're hoping people will sponsor us for the amount that we walk.
That's amazing. So can anyone donate to this? Is there a website or
Absolutely.
anything?
On my website, there's information. And so I have the website, Patti Shales Lefkos. I have 2 Facebook pages, one with my name, one called Nepal One Day at a Time. The way people donate to get a tax receipt is a little bit convoluted because we're under the umbrella of a group called Afratech Aid Society, Afratech with an E. And you have to go to Afratech Aid Society on CanadaHelps.org. And they have a drop-down menu, and we're listed there under their drop-down menu. But if it's confusing, people can just get in touch with me easily through my website.
Great. And yeah, we'll put all those links in the show notes as well so people can easily find them. That's
Thank
great.
you.
And so the books you mentioned, Nepal One Day at a Time and Grounded by Granite, are they available on Amazon? Where can people find them?
They're both available on Amazon.ca and .com. And you can order it through your local independent bookstore if you like and support them. That's always nice. I mentioned that I fell in the cave monastery. That's where you enter the cave monastery.
Oh, wow. So this is the front cover of the book. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. I was very, very lucky to get that photo. You see, that's the benefit of going to journalism school. When you go to journalism school, they say, if you take a photo, take one horizontal and one vertical, because you never know where it's going to fit on a, a newspaper page.
Yeah.
I remember standing there, and generally when you hold up your camera, it's a horizontal. And I remembered that and turned it. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had the cover for the book.
Oh, nice. That's a good tip. So who would you say these books are for? I know you mentioned a bit about what they're about. Can anyone read them and get inspired to travel? Like, is the reason you wrote them to inspire other people to do a similar thing, or just to tell your story?
Part of it was profits from the sales of the books go back to the school. So that was one idea. But I would love that people know that even if you're over 50 or over 60, I'll be 77 when I go back this fall. So if you train and take it slowly and one day at a time, you can still do those things. So hopefully it's for armchair travelers too. Talks a lot of the Nepal book has a lot of culture and education and a lot of different sides to it. And about volunteering, people that are interested in volunteering in a developing country, it gives you an idea what it might be like. The Grounded by Granite it's about Canadian cottage country. And a lot of people around the world seem quite interested in that. So it's for regulars around cottage country that used to have a cottage or wish they did or have memories of. But it's also for parents that want to find out how to get their kids away from screen time, because we didn't have that. We didn't even have electricity on the island. But not just that, my parents spent a lot of time with us, and we played outdoors all the time. And we learned amazing skills. We learned to paddle a canoe and row and swim, and things I took for granted for years until other friends came to visit, and they did, what do you mean you don't know how to row a boat? So just really lucky that way. So there's quite a broad range of interest, I think, I might like.
Yeah, I know you said you wanted to be a writer ever since you got the typewriter when you were little. How did you find the process of writing these books?
I learned a lot with the first one. As I said, I wrote a lot of travel articles, and then I started to put them together into something bigger. And frankly, I finished the entire book. It was 80,000 words. And I didn't know if I should throw it in the garbage or what. So I met an editor at a writer's conference, and that helped. Going to writer's conferences all along the way, I learned a lot. And I said, would you have a look at it? And she did. And 2 words hung out big time after highly publishable. So, and then of course there was work to do. It's never finished. It's always a lot more. And I learned a lot over that process, of course, which made the second book easier. And I'm planning a third, which will be Nepal, It's Never Too Late, discovering love, connection, and personal resilience on the Great Himalayan Trail. That's the plan now. I've started it covering some of the treks we've done. And after we come back in December, I'll keep going on that.
Do you want to learn all about the 5 travel transformation principles, including how to conquer your fears through travel? Then you need to grab a copy of my Travel Transformation Guide, written by me, Jessica Grace Coleman, as part of my Flip the Script Academy. It's totally free. All I ask for in exchange is your email address so I can keep you updated on all things travel and transformation. Just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/free guide to get your guide today. And now, let's get back to the Travel Transformation podcast. So do these treks with your husband? I know obviously you've done some solo ones. Yeah. So what did he feel about you going solo? I know it was sort of circumstances made it happen rather than you just deciding you wanted to go on your own. But I think a lot of people get put off the idea of solo traveling if they're married or in a relationship, and it's not something that they normally would do. They normally go away together as a couple.
Well, if someone read the first chapter of the book, they could find out that really it became evident to him that it was very important for me to go. I really wanted to do it. I was afraid I might not go if I waited too long. So, it didn't happen overnight. We had a lot of discussions, but once I made the decision to go, we made it together, really. He was extremely supportive, helping me get organized. And also we knew the trekking company, we knew the guide, we knew we could trust them. So,
yeah, that's a big part of it, isn't it? It takes away a lot of the nerves and concerns you might have. So you've done several other treks, but I want to ask you, I believe you did a UK trek, is that right?
Yes, that was our first overseas trek. Believe it or not, I hadn't had a passport since I came home from Switzerland. because we'd done lots of ski trips and canoe trips and things around North America, and you didn't even need a passport to go into the United States at that time. So we got passports and we thought, okay, we'll try out going and we'll go to the UK. I had never carried a pack for more than 3 days. So you do only carry a day pack, but I'd never hiked more than 3 days in a row either. So that was kind of a shakedown trip.
So
that was lovely.
Why did you decide to do that particular walk, and how long did it take?
Actually, we did only the west half because we were going to the Hebrides to visit a grave, actually, of my best friend who was from the Isle of Lewis. And so we did the mountain section. And now I think we were about 9 days. And I believe we scheduled a rest day in the middle just in case. And we went with a company that carries your bag forward to the next place. So it's a pretty easy way to get started.
Did you experience the great British weather during those 9 days?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Lots of rain. You know what? It was rain and some extreme wind, but it was fine. Yeah.
It didn't put you off.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And how does that obviously differ a lot, but how does that type of walk differ to, say, trekking in Nepal? Obviously, the weather and the climate's different, but what are the main differences?
Where you sleep at night. If you're trekking one of the usual treks that people do, you end up in a guest house at night, and that's not bad, and the food's pretty good. Limited because there's limited refrigeration in some places, so you have to be careful what you eat. People are friendly everywhere. Everybody that we met, the coast was really great, but they're more like you, more like each other. We all speak the same language and have a lot of the same values. The Nepali people have the same values too, family values, and they're extremely welcoming, but you'll be in a guest house, and if you're going off the beaten path, you'll be camping. That's the way. There isn't anything else. There are 2 big centers, beautiful hotels, but there's also all that other stuff out there. The other thing is you do a lot of up and down, up and down. And I found on the Tour de Mont Blanc and coast to coast, you tend to go up, 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 up by noon and then down the other side. Whereas in Nepal, you tend to go up, down, Ukalo, Oralo. But it's easier on your knees and legs, really, because there's more variety in the day. So in some ways, I found it easier. Although you have to deal with altitude. So that's something you don't think about on the coast to coast.
No, we wouldn't need to worry about that. So as you've got older and you're doing these walks, you mentioned you had a problem with your hip on one of them, but that you just had to keep going. Like, how do you do anything special to prepare for that? Like, I have a dodgy back and like I would have to consider that when doing like a long trek and that kind of stuff. Is there anything you do to prepare, or do you just power through? How do you deal with it?
I do a lot more cross-country skiing than downhill in the winter, and I try to up the number of kilometers through the winter. Always ski with a pack and walk with a pack, so you're used to carrying the same pack that you're taking with you. And I try to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, and I do most mornings, and I do meditation for 5 or 10 minutes, and then some stretching and strength and yoga for about half an hour. And then, like right now, today, after I'm finished here, we'll go out on snowshoes, about 10K snowshoeing. It's keeping at it at least 4 or 5 days, if you can.
I guess that definitely comes in handy living in a ski resort with all the snow and everything. That's really cool.
I'm lucky. We're retired, and I can officially, from the education job, my husband as well. So we can make our own schedule for those things.
Yeah. So I ask everyone what their favorite places in the world are. And I apologize if I butcher the pronunciations of these names. But you said the Soom Valley in Nepal, is that right? Have I said that right?
Soom.
Soom, yep.
Yeah.
Mount Kailash? Kailash in Tibet. And Lhasa?
Yeah.
Lhasa, I got one right. The capital city of the Tibet Autonomous Region. So why did you choose these places in particular? Why are they so special to you?
Okay. The first one was Soom Valley. Yes, that was where we went in 2017. It was only open to tourists in 2008. So it's very unspoiled and very Buddhist culture. And you're roughing it. We were tenting, but we had a cook with us. It's hardly roughing it. But the people are just so wonderful and welcoming. And they invite you into their house for tea. Because we were in that area for about 8 or 10 days. We saw one group of Westerners from Canada who have a health project, a health center that they sponsor, and 2 other Westerners That was it. Not like the Everest Base Camp or the Annapurna Circuit where you just like, everybody's from somewhere else. So it's very unspoiled and very beautiful too. And Kailash. Yeah. Kailash was after the UK, that was the next place we went, was to go to Tibet. So we went to Beijing and then flew to Lhasa, and you fly into 12,000 feet. And then you have to kind of lie there for the day to get acclimatized. It's a big jump.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where the true Tibetan Buddhists are. And they're pretty magnificent people. We both had read a lot of the Dalai Lama's teachings, and my school choir had sung for the Dalai Lama in Vancouver when he was here. We had a lot of connections with it. But those people, and we got to know enough to say, don't take me to a restaurant that's run by the Chinese people or the Chinese government. I mean, we have many Chinese friends and they're all wonderful, but the government stuff. And so we wanted to support the shops and restaurants and places that were owned by Tibetan people because they are very oppressed there. And we got to meet wonderful people. And then we went out to Mount Kailash. You drive 6 or 7 days west, and it's a walk around a 3-day Kora or walk around Mount Kailash. And the highest pass is called Dromala, and it's 19,600 feet. And that was my first time at altitude. And I was fine because we went very slowly, many days to get there and getting higher a bit every day. But that was pretty magical. Just people you see there and meet.
I haven't been to that area at all. So you're really making me want to go. It does sound magical. It sounds really
well. And it's funny, there's two ways of thinking about going to Lhasa. Maybe you're supporting the Chinese, but then the Dalai Lama says, go and witness what is happening. And tell others. I really think that's true.
Yeah.
The main temple is called the Jokang. And you know how Tibetan people prostrate down and spread out. It's pretty amazing to watch their devotion and their kindness and simplicity, actually, and their strength and resilience to keep their culture.
Well, so, I mean, you've gone to a lot of places. Do you have any places left on your list that you want to go to specifically?
We need to get to Patagonia because my husband always wanted to go there. I got so attached to Nepal that we kept going back. So he needs to have a turn for his bucket list soon, although he loves the mountaineer. He was a mountain guide before he was a teacher.
Yeah, that is the trouble, isn't it? Because I keep going back to places I love, and there's still so many new places I want to go to, and it's a good problem to have, but trying to choose is very difficult. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned from your travels generally?
How incredibly fortunate we are, and how our first world problems are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And how people can be so happy with so little materially. They're extremely resilient and caring.
Yeah, definitely. How it takes sometimes like going to places like that to put your own life in perspective. And like you said, first world problems definitely into perspective. Yeah. So, okay. So I have 2 quick last questions before we go. We're going to put these in the show notes, but first of all, where's the best place to find and follow you online? And then is there anything else you want to mention or talk about before we go?
Probably most of the updates generally will happen on the Facebook page, Nepal One Day at a Time. But my website is always good too, because you can contact me directly through the website, which is just PattiShalesLefkos.com. I just encourage people to get out there. And my favorite saying is from a fellow that used to ski every day at Hollyburn, which is the cross-country area out of Vancouver, where we used to ski and we'd train at night and stuff. This gentleman was from Austria originally. He was a prisoner of war in World War II, and he skied every single day in season until he was 90. His name was Ralph, and he would say, stay positive and keep moving, baby.
I love that so much, and that is the perfect place to end this interview. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and spread the word if you have friends or family who also want to transform through travel. For a chance of winning one of my books in ebook form, please review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and send a screenshot or just your name to info@traveltransformationcoach.com or at Travel Transformation Coach on Instagram. I'll be picking a new winner each month, and you can choose between any of my non-fiction titles, including Write Your Life, Write Your Year, and Intentional Travel Transformation. You can find out more about me at traveltransformationcoach.com, where you can also get your free travel transformation guide. And until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.